What's up, everyone? Very, very different location. This is my home studio of sorts. It's work in progress, guys. It is. I'm going to be putting some lights back there, some cabinets. I'm going to really do it up, but it's kind of hard to get a lot of things right now with us being in circuit breaker, aka lockdown mode in Singapore. So we're doing what we can. But nonetheless, I still want to create great content for you guys and give you info on devices and cameras and phones and all that fun stuff. So when you're ready to get back out there in the real world and you want to purchase a new device, we can help you with that. Anyway, talking about two phones today that have really impressed me in 2020. They're both foldable phones, but this is not a comparison of which one is better because they are different in size and in terms of functionality, but just to kind of give you some info when you're ready, like I said, to make that decision. We got with us the Huawei Mate XS and the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip. Now, like all my reviews, I'm not paid or sponsored unless I tell you, okay, guys? And we're not paid or sponsored by anyone for this. My thoughts only. Let's talk about these two phones. All right, let's talk about the designs on these phones. First, the Mate XS. The Mate XS looks like a standard smartphone, 6.6-inch OLED display. Open it up, 8 inches. Very, very thin, very beautiful. Wraps around the entire phone, and you have a lock mechanism on the back of it. Now, this phone is very weighty. I mean, it has an aluminum body frame. It's plastic on the display. It's 300 grams when it's closed up. There's 2 batteries in this. There's a lot of circuitry in there. It's a weighty phone, but it feels very, very premium. I love what Huawei's done with this. One of my favorite design phones Huawei's done in years with the Mate XS. So whatever your engineers and design team are doing out there, Huawei, keep doing this kind of stuff. I like this. Now, you might have heard this when I opened and closed the display, there is a bit of a, I won't say cracking sound, but there's a bit of a sound, right? Now, when I first got this phone, I was like, oh, did I break something? But no, it's just not a very smooth sound. I think it has a lot to do with the plastic and all the other materials that are inside of this phone when you're opening and closing it. But there has been no issues at all over the past few weeks I've used this phone. I do want to put that out there for you, so do not worry about it. The Z Flip has a much smoother folding mechanism, but this phone is fine. In terms of battery life, 4,500 milliamp battery. The battery is here and here. All the circuitry for the phone is in this bar, plus the cameras and everything else. That's quite amazing. Quite amazing what Huawei's done with this. Now, in terms of speakers, you do have 2 speakers on this, the bottom and the top area here. They're not the loudest speakers out there, but they will do the job. It's great for media viewing and everything else like that. But you can use the Huawei, I think it was a free buds or Bluetooth earbuds or any other earbuds that you want to use for it, and you'll be fine. There's no headphone jack on this, so I think it's just USB-C or Bluetooth, so keep that in mind. It's quick charging. I think it's almost like an hour and you get this thing fully charged. Really, really amazing. No wireless charging on this, so do keep that in mind. If you want to do wireless charging, not happening with the Mate XS, but then again, it's all display in the back of the phone, so you can't have everything. Let's talk about durability on this display, because that's probably a question all of you are asking. Come on, is it really durable? Now, here's the thing. I didn't get that rubber bumper that comes around it. This is a review set, so sometimes we're missing some pieces in the box. That rubber bumper does lift the phone off the table slightly if you want to set it down. However, there's a screen protector on this that does have some scratches. Now, it wasn't for me. It was from another person that was handling the phone prior to when I got it. I was worried about it. I asked Huawei, I said, guys, can this be replaced? And they're like, yes, it can. Just take it down to a Huawei service center and they'll replace it for you. If you are going to get this phone, just keep that in mind. Try to protect the display as much as you possibly can because it is plastic. Plastic is more susceptible to scratches than glass. So you'll see the scratches here on the display. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just something to take note of, okay? But don't try to remove the screen protector on your own. Just don't do it. Talk to Huawei first before you do any of those kind of things. Besides that though, it's really a beautiful, beautiful device. I mean, the aluminum frame on this, I just really can't say enough about it. I really love what Huawei's done with it. Let's talk about the Z Flip for a moment. The Z Flip. The Z Flip brings you back to the 90s, you know? You know when you have the StarTACs, those Samsung flip phones, and even the Razr, right? How's that? Look at that. Look at that. It's beautifully made. The hinge. Can't even hear anything. It's right next to the mic. Look at that. It's so beautifully made. I gotta hand it to Samsung for this. The engineering on this is top notch. Now, when you open it up, it's a 6.7-inch AMOLED display, very high resolution. On the front of it though, there's a small display there. Now this small display is a little bit of a talking point, and I kind of understand why people are a little bit perturbed as why Samsung didn't put at least a little bit larger display in there. Now I was told there's batteries on the top and bottom of this, other circuitry, so they didn't want to like overwhelm the phone, but yeah, you really can't do a lot with that display there. You really can't. So it's kind of like you get your notifications, you get your time, you can take selfies with it, but you only see like part of your face. But the camera does take your entire face on it. I got the prism color. I wanted something different, you know, because they had black. It's great, it's cool, it's sexy, but it's very understated. And I mean, if you want to carry around a Z Flip, carry around something like this. Let people see, hey, I got a Z Flip, man. Great color. But then, as you can see, I got black leather covers for it to protect it. So I just get a little hints of purple instead of all purple. Anyway, protection first. Always very important when you're spending this kind of money on both these phones, because these are not cheap phones. Anyway, enough about the design. Let's talk about the specs. Let's talk about specs first with the Galaxy Z Flip. Now you got a 3300 milliamp battery in this. So this will give you all day battery life. I've been using it off and on for the past number of weeks, and I've had no issues at all with it. Now, if you are a huge powerhouse user, a big gamer, you're a big Netflix person, yeah, it's not gonna last you that long. But you got wireless charging on this. It's pretty fast charging, so no issues at all. But 3300 milliamp battery. But it's a very small phone. Now the display on this is 1080 by 2636, 425 ppi for you pixel peepers out there. Very high resolution display. Is it going to be like the ultra QHD displays out there? No, but honestly speaking, unless you put both phones next to each other, you really don't notice a difference. There's only so much our human eye can see, and it's a beautiful, beautiful display. Samsung makes some of the best displays out there, and it continues on even with these foldable phones. Now, in terms of the processor in this, you get the Snapdragon 855 Plus with Adreno 640. Now, a lot of people out there are going, wait a second, why not the Snapdragon 865? Here's the thing. Last year, I think there was maybe 2 phones that came out with 855 Plus. Correct me if I'm wrong here. It was the ROG Phone 2, and it was the OnePlus 7 Pro T. I forget which one. One of those two, right? All the rest came out with the Snapdragon 855. So when they moved to this 865, there's not a big difference in terms of usage, right? I mean, the 65 is a little bit more powerful, has a little bit more feature set, but frankly speaking, this phone is not meant to be a hardcore gamer's phone or hardcore user's phone. It's a lifestyle phone. And you're not going to notice any sort of difference between 865 and 855 Plus on a day-to-day basis. You're just not going to do so, okay? So don't worry about all that. It works beautifully. All right, let's talk about the internals on this. You've got 256 gigabytes of onboard storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, of course, you got cloud storage on this, so you can use that. If you want extra storage, just use the cloud nowadays. Don't worry about the SD cards, because I think a lot of companies have realized that a lot of people just don't use SD cards as much as they say they do. Everybody wants an SD card in their phone, but how many people actually use them? Anyway, in terms of cameras, you got 2 12 megapixel cameras on the back of it, and you've got a 10 megapixel selfie camera on the front or the inside of the phone, okay? Image quality is not bad. Compared to the Mate XS, it's not in the same league. Again, this is a lifestyle phone, but it does take really, really nice photos, but you just need to understand that you're not going to get your crazy 100 times zoom. You're not going to get all that kind of stuff. This is great for day-to-day photography. I'm still able to capture some beautiful images out of this thing. The detail is good enough for what I need it for. It's good enough for social media and all those kind of things like that. If you want something higher resolution, then obviously you go up to the S20 Ultra, and then you can have a field day with a 100 megapixel camera. That's not this phone, but it works really, really well. Selfie camera works good also for video as well. And the great thing about this, which we'll talk about in just a bit when you get into the foldable usage of the phone, is what you can do some cool things when you're using the selfie camera. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's a really, really solid phone. It's gonna be a phone that I think for a lot of people out there, it has just enough specs to keep you going for the next couple of years, because this is an investment when you buy a foldable phone. And I like it. I like a lot what Samsung's done with this phone. There's really not much to complain about. The only thing would be the small display in the front, to be frank with you. It could have been a little bit larger, but it is what it is. Now the Mate XS has a 990 Kirin processor in this, which is 5G compatible. That's impressive. Again, 5G is only in selected markets out there. It's not here in Singapore yet, but if you're in a country that has 5G, you can utilize this, but if you're using a different band, it might not work. In terms of storage, you got 512 gigabytes of onboard storage. It's expandable with Huawei's proprietary like nano memory card that goes inside here, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. So this is a powerhouse of a phone. I mean, it's got better specs than a lot of laptops do. In terms of the display, the specs on it, 6.6 inch OLED display closed, 8 inch open. It is 2200 by 2480, 414 ppi for you pixel peepers out there. So it's still a very high resolution display. It looks beautiful. You can adjust the saturation levels on the display because out of the box it comes out quite saturated. I usually tone things down because I do a lot of editing of photos on my devices, and I want a much more realistic color. So I try to find that happy medium, at least for me. What else with it to know about? It is fast charging, as I mentioned before, so up to 100% of charging within an hour. That's quite impressive. You got to use the Huawei charger that's in the box though, so if you want to use an external charger, you won't get those kind of speeds. But I've used this with, let's say, a MacBook Pro laptop, and I've charged this phone up relatively fast. I mean, leave it on overnight. You wake up the next morning, it's charged. So, I mean, only need the fast charging when you're in desperate times. So just bring the charger with you if you're out and about. No wireless charging on this, so do keep that in mind, as I mentioned before. It's kind of a downer, but I understand it because you got displays on the front and back of it, so you can't really, you can't charge through a display, at least not yet. Maybe in 2021, Huawei will figure it out. What else? Camera-wise, you got a 40 megapixel main camera, you get 8 megapixel telephoto and 16 megapixel ultra wide, and a 3D depth sensing camera, all this co-engineered with Leica. The cameras do really well, they really do. And you know what I like about the XS cameras is that they're not trying to do some crazy 50 times zoom or 100 times zoom or something that nobody's ever going to use. They really just keep it in the realm of where everyone's going to use these devices and use them well. And I think the 40 megapixel, again, when you use 40 megapixels on these phones, it's pixel binning, so it's not a true 40 megapixel camera, but it does give you a much sharper and much more detailed image. But you can't use any of the like aperture mode or portrait mode or any of those other stylized modes with it. You can only take a photo. If you want to use any of those other modes, you have to dynamic range, but you do lose some of that resolution, so do keep that in mind. Video-wise, you got the 4K 30, HD, all that fun stuff in this. The video capabilities in this is really good. There is no image stabilization in the cameras though, but AI takes over and it does a pretty decent job with it. The microphones on this phone are actually really good as well too, so keep that in mind. If you want to do some vlogging or do some selfie recording, you might be very impressed with what you get out of the Mate XS when it comes to that. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell with the Mate XS. Solid specs, I would say they're flagship, but flagship is changing every few months. It's going to be good enough for a lot of people for at least the next couple of years, because in Singapore alone, I think it's over 3,000 Singapore dollars. So this is a heavy investment, and they've covered you on the specs to last you for a while. Let's talk about usability for a moment, because this is where it gets interesting with both of these phones, especially foldable phones, because there's so many scenarios you can use these phones in that you never thought possible. Case in point, nowadays a lot of us are using house parties, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, IG Live to communicate with friends and family, right? Now with a standard smartphone, you need to get some sort of phone holder or tripod, or lean it against a shelf of books or a potted plant and find the right angle. But with a foldable phone, let's say with a Z Flip, for example, right? The engineers at Samsung have allowed you to position the angle of the phone however you want, it stays. So, if I wanted to do vlogging, set it like this, put it onto a shelf, I'm good to go. Now, the Mate XS. Can't necessarily do that because you've got a spring in the hinge of this display. But one thing you can do with the Mate XS, which is different than the Z Flip, is that you have the full power of these 4 cameras. You can do a 40 megapixel selfie, you could do 4K video quality coming from the front camera, because there is no front facing camera. It's just these 3 cameras. So quality of content creation, you could say, could go to the Mate XS because you're getting the great sensors for whatever scenario you need. But for flexibility, the Z Flip might be the phone for you. Not comparing these two phones, they're two separate phones, but just sort of laying out how they can be used in various different scenarios. Now, let's talk about unlocking these phones, because nowadays we got to wear masks when we're out about. Good idea, right? We want to protect ourselves. But Face Unlock and Face ID doesn't work with masks, right? Doesn't capture this. Both of these phones have a fingerprint sensor on the side of them. You are covered. Plus, with Android phones, you can do pattern unlock, so you're good to go on that front. If you want to use Face Unlock, you can with the Z Flip, but it doesn't really work. So just rely on the fingerprint sensors, especially in this time, in this day and age with masks needing to be worn all the time. Let's talk about multitasking. Multitasking. Both of these phones do it, but they do it in slightly different ways. The Z Flip allows you to open up various different windows. It takes a lot of that technology that we saw from the Fold and from the Note series from years ago and all the way till today. That's all built into the Samsung UI. And Samsung, you could say, is the best for multitasking. It does a great job, but you don't want too many windows open on it because it's only a 6.7-inch display. It's quite narrow, so it can be a little bit garbled up. The Mate XS does multitasking too, but not quite at the same level, but it's still good. I'll explain this. You can actually have 3 apps open on the Huawei device, 2 apps side by side and then 1 floating app. However, getting to that is a little bit cumbersome, and the reason I say that is you have to slide from the right to the app drawer, but you have to press, slide, and hold. Wait a second, then the app drawer opens up. Only a certain amount of apps can be available at your disposal, and not every single app works. Choose the apps that you want to open, and then try to find that floating third app is also difficult because not every single app works as a floating app, at least in my experience. So if you want to compare multitasking, yes, Samsung is better, but having just even 3 apps on a beautiful 8-inch display is beautiful, and it makes your workflow so much easier. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Google services, right? As you can tell from some of the footage you've seen from the Mate XS already, I have the Google apps loaded up on here. I did it myself. I'm not going to walk you through how I did it. I'm not going to put a tutorial, no links. Just go on the web and find out, okay? Because that's not this type of video. But one thing is, and yes, with Google services, the phone works fantastic. And I wish they came out of the box like that. But I have to say this, and no one's paying me to say this, by the way, is that when I did get the Mate XS, it didn't have it available. And I was using it without the services for a couple of weeks. And I was actually surprised at how good the app gallery is from Huawei already. I mean, they've got a lot of the big developers on board and a lot of apps that cover a lot of the needs that you might be missing from the Google service apps. Now, sure, obviously the main ones like Maps and let's say, YouTube and, YouTube Creator Studio, all those things aren't available. You can use the websites for those things and you still can get the job done. But I was quite impressed with what Huawei's done. And I've got to say, I would say it's about a 60-40, 70-30, like 60% had what I need or 70% of what I needed and 30-40% of what I wanted they didn't have. But it wasn't as bad as I thought because there was always these workarounds that I could find out there. So if you don't want to load up Google services for whatever reason, and that is totally at your prerogative and there's no right or wrong answer to it, don't worry. Actually, Huawei's got you pretty well covered and you've got Android 10 on it. And they are going to update EMUI on it, so it's not as big a deal as I thought it might have been. Surprising. Overall conclusions on these phones. Both of these phones have really, really impressed me. I mean, going back to the Z Flip for a moment, the engineering, the build quality of this phone, it's amazing. What Samsung's done with it, hats off to you guys. This is, even though it's not the powerhouse phone that the other Samsung phones are, it is probably my favorite Samsung phone in the last few years. Okay, the Fold was there as well because I love the Fold, but this is even better. The Mate XS. Huawei, keep doing what you're doing with this. The innovation, the engineering, the design of this, I love it. I love that you guys thought outside the box, wrapping a display around the outside of it. Now, durability, both of these phones, they're foldable displays. Don't take any sharp objects to them. They're not the same as they are with a standard phone. Don't try it at home. I've seen videos, you've seen videos. Of course it's not going to be as durable. They're flexible displays, at least not in 2020. But besides that, I love the cameras. I love the capabilities this phone has. I love the power that it has. I really like what Huawei's done with this. Guys, keep doing these kind of things. Anyway, which phone do you like? Which phone is the one that you would rather have in your pocket? Would it be the Mate XS or would it be the Z Flip? There's no right or wrong answer. Let me know in the comments section below. Like always, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and if you like this video, you might not like the products, but if at least you like this video, click on like. It helps us out. Anyway, with that guys, take care, be safe. We'll chat to you soon.